Hey everybody. Once again, my name is Maggie Young, and this is a presentation from the Arkansas Citizens First Congress on how to utilize Zoom as a resource. So we'll be starting now. Um, so we have about 2 hours, I think, set aside to talk about Zoom, an hour and a half. This should be about an hour-long presentation with a lot of time for questions and answers at the end. And you guys, please use that Q&A feature that we have set up. If you have any questions about what I've talked about or anything that I haven't been able to cover in detail, please send your questions in, and we have panelists that will be answering those questions by typing them in, and I can also answer them over this webinar. So this is just a quick outline of our presentation. What is Zoom? What are the basics of having a Zoom meeting? Do I need to buy a Zoom account, or can I just keep using a free one? Do I need to even make a Zoom account? How to download and log into Zoom, and using the basic Zoom controls that all participants can see. Scheduling a Zoom meeting if you do sign up for a Zoom account. And then there's other Zoom features that are for higher cost accounts. And then we're going to wrap it up with Zoom safety, etiquette, and tips. So why should we utilize Zoom? At the panel, we started using Zoom, I believe, last fall or maybe early winter. But it's a really great way to do video conferencing. It's really a user-friendly platform, and it's really compatible with computers, phones, and tablets, which means if you don't have access to a computer, you can still share screens and see other people's screens with your phone or your tablet. And you can even dial into Zoom calls if you don't have a smart device that's capable of having an app on it. Zoom's really great because you can also share documents really easily in a chat feature. There's also screen sharing, which is what I'm doing right now. I have just a basic PowerPoint pulled up, but I'm sharing my screen so you can all see the same PowerPoint that I'm moving through. There's a chat box feature that Zoom has, which allows participants to message the entire group of people or individual people if they have a question. You can also record meetings on Zoom. This is being recorded and will be uploaded to our CFC website later. And Zoom also offers really great tech support. Their website is really well designed to help you find whatever answer to your question is that you're looking for. On their website, they even have a little automatic chat box that will pop up, and you can type in your question to it, and it will take you to the correct page on their website that will answer whatever question you have. It's really, really great. They also have call-in lines for tech support, but those are a little bit busier, so I'd recommend the website first. Fancier features of Zoom include polling and breakout rooms. So if you're having a really big meeting and not everybody can individually answer a question, you can create a poll and have people answer multiple choice questions. Or if you have a really large meeting and you want people to be able to break into smaller groups to discuss a specific topic and then come back together, you can also have breakout rooms with Zoom, which is really a cool feature. And Zoom has basically two types of meetings that you can use. You can have a standard meeting, which is where you have one person that starts the meeting, that's the host, and everybody else jumps on and everybody has their video on and you can see and interact with everyone. And then there's also the webinar feature, which is what we're using right now. So that one's more for a classroom setting or for any kind of teaching or anything where someone has a really long presentation that they're going to have to give, because that highlights their whole screen and it allows for very little participation from the audience unless they're typing in a question to the Q&A or to the chat. It's really helpful to keep meetings on track if it's just going to be really one long presentation meeting. So we're using a webinar feature right now, but standard, we're going to be talking about standard Zoom meetings over this presentation. And there's a few different roles that people can have during these presentations as well. There's the host and co-host. So Bill and I are hosting and co-hosting this meeting right now. So that means that either of us can start or stop the meeting for the entire group of people. We can control the chat box. We can allow people to speak. We can cover video. The co-host and host have a lot of the power to control what's happening in the meeting. And the next panelists, that's going to be a webinar exclusive role. So we have Megan and Cassie on as panelists right now. They're going to be answering questions over the Q&A section. But also for webinars, you can have larger groups of people. So like 4 or 5 panelists can join in, and you can see the video of just those 4 or 5 people, and you can have hundreds of people watch these panelists talk about whatever topic you've chosen. And then the participants, that's the standard. That's the role we're going to be talking about the most in this Zoom meeting, but it's how to control your own Zoom features as a participant, and just how you fit into the Zoom meeting. So the first thing is plans and pricing. So it's really important to know that only hosts of a meeting are required to have a Zoom plan. That doesn't mean that they have to have a paid for account with Zoom. They can sign up for a free one. Zoom Basic is free. It's a really great option. I think if you're a smaller organization, Zoom Basic would be perfectly fine for whatever needs you have. The biggest limitation on Zoom Basic, though, is that those meetings will be cut off at 40 minutes. So if you have a Zoom meeting with more than one other person, the meeting will end at 40 minutes. But you can set up another meeting immediately after. So if you want to have a meeting at 2 p.m. that lasts an hour, you can just set up another meeting for 2:40. You just have to make sure that all of your participants know that they need to click on the next link to join the next meeting. That's just going to happen right at 2:40 when the first meeting ends. Zoom Basic also has a limitation on the number of people that can join your meeting. So it can go up to 100. And I think for most organizations, that's perfectly fine to have up to 100 people. But if the basic plan, if you don't like those limitations, there's also Zoom Pro. This is $15 a month per license, with the license meaning that you are the person that will set up the meetings, that will host the meetings, that will end the meetings. It's basically just saying that you'll be the permanent host and you're the one that controls this Zoom account. These meetings can go up to 24 hours, and depending on what the standard amount of people you have on your meetings are, you can vary how many people. So you can have up to 100, you can have to 500, you can have to 1,000, and I believe the final one is 10,000. But obviously the cost will increase with the amount of people that you'd like to have on your meeting. There's also Zoom Business and Zoom Enterprise accounts. Those are a higher tier in cost, and they have a few more features that Zoom Basic and Zoom Pro don't have. So the polling thing that I talked about earlier and the breakout rooms, those exist in Zoom Enterprise accounts, but they don't exist for Zoom Pro. So depending on the needs of your organization or of your personal use, it would vary. But I really recommend just getting a Zoom Basic account. There's really no need to pay for the Zoom Pro unless you're a larger organization or you just have meetings constantly. And then there's a few add-ons that Zoom offers. You can have a Zoom room, which is basically just a conference room that is set up with better video cameras and microphones to be able to pick up what's going on in the conference room, and other people can remotely join from their laptop or phone or tablet. Zoom phones, I believe that's just an app that you would download onto your phone that basically is a phone plan. So you would use Zoom to make any phone call that you needed, or to send a text message, or to join obviously standard Zoom meetings. That's not an option that I am aware of anyone using before. And then there's also the Zoom webinar feature, which is what we're using right now. It's really great for, again, if you are going to have to do some kind of teaching or presentation where it's mostly just going to be one person speaking the majority of the time. So the most important thing to know when hosting a Zoom meeting is that every single person has to download the Zoom app in order to be able to actually participate. So if they want to be able to send a message in the chat, or if they want to be able to share their screen, or if they want to have video capability, they have to download the Zoom app to participate. Zoom also always offers a call-in option. So whenever you receive a Zoom invitation, it will also have a dial-in option with just a standard number that you can call, and you'll hear all the audio that's happening, but you won't be able to see the video. So if you have the ability to access the Zoom app, it's really, really a great feature. But if you can't, there is still always a dial-in option. So if you don't have access to a smart device that can hold the app, or if you don't have a really strong or solid, reliable Wi-Fi, you can also always just dial in if your Wi-Fi stops for some reason. So the Zoom Download Center is where you'll see all the Zoom apps that you need, and I'm going to open that right now. The Zoom app, oh, I don't think you'll be able to see it actually. The Zoom app is called Zoom Client for Meetings, and everyone would need to download this. You can also get a Zoom extension for your browser. That one is mostly for if you just have to frequently schedule Zoom meetings, like if you're working for an organization full-time and you constantly have to schedule meetings. I would recommend the Zoom extension for your Chrome browser. It's just a quick little button that's attached to your Google Chrome browser that will let you automatically schedule a meeting without having to go to the Zoom page or without having to open the Zoom app. And there's also Zoom mobile apps. Those are for both iPhone and Android users. The Android one is accessed through the Google Market, and the Apple one is on the App Store. If you don't have access to a computer or you aren't able to use a desktop, the Zoom mobile app is really great. But I would really recommend, if you're going to host a meeting, do your best to be able to hop on with a laptop. But if you can't, the phone app works really fine if you're just having a really quick meeting that isn't any kind of presentation. There is also an app that you can download onto an iPhone that will specifically allow you to share your iPhone screen with other people. So joining a Zoom meeting, there's a lot of different ways that you can hop onto a Zoom meeting. You can use your email. You'll be emailed an event reminder frequently. You can access it through your calendar because Zoom tries to automatically put any scheduled Zoom meeting onto your go-to calendar. Or you can manually join a Zoom meeting if you have the meeting ID and password, if there is a password associated with the meeting. This can be done with or without audio and video. So when you log on to Zoom, it will ask if you want to join with audio, and it will ask if you want to join with video. And if you do, you'll click yes. And if you don't, you'll click join without audio and join without video. And you can also change those settings at any point later in your Zoom meeting. Passwords may or may not be linked to a meeting. Not every Zoom meeting is going to have a password. It depends on who scheduled the meeting, what their preference is, if they'd like to use a password or not. I try to always use a password. I think it adds another layer of security so that theoretically, if your meeting were to be hacked, it would be a little bit more difficult, but they'd have to figure out 6 or 7 more characters to be able to hop into the meeting. And like I mentioned earlier, dial in is also an option. So you can call in on your phone, you just won't be able to see anything that's happening on the screen, but you'll still be able to hear all the audio from the host and from the participants. So this is what it would look like if you were emailed a Zoom invitation. So it's just a standard calendar event invitation. And here at CFC, we generally use Google Calendar, and we're using Gmail for all of this. But this is what the invitation looks like. This is just a screenshot from my email. And you would click that URL at the bottom for where. You'll just click that URL, and it will automatically either start downloading the Zoom app, depending on if you have the app or not, or it will open up your app and start the meeting. So joining through your calendar, if it was something that's really deep back in your email and you're not going to be able to find it, generally you would also have scheduled it on your calendar. And when you open your calendar in the information section, you're going to see a link for joining the Zoom meeting. Because I have the extension added, it's also a little bit faster. If I just click the button that says join Zoom meeting, it'll automatically open up my app. But I could also just click that link. They both would do the exact same thing and open up the app for me and start the meeting. This is how you would join it manually. So when you have the Zoom app, this is what it looks like on a desktop. When you open it, you'll click join. And from there, you'll type in the meeting ID and whatever name you would like to appear associated with with yourself, with the account that you've logged in with. So I think mine says Maggie Young right now, but when I joined whatever meeting this was, I had it as Margaret Young, and then I clicked join, and that was it. So there's also a lot of basic features that participants have that are really useful, with the most important probably being controlling your video and audio. You can also share your screen. The people outside of just the host can share their screen with the entire group. You can invite people to the meeting while in the meeting. So if someone was accidentally left out, or somebody needs to hop on real quick that we didn't initially know needed to be on that meeting, you can invite them through the app. There's also a chat box feature, which we have on this one right now. That's on webinars as well. There's file sharing, which can be done through the chat box or through sharing your screen. And there's a recording the meeting option. Recording the meetings is really cool. We're recording it right now. But depending on your account, you have a limited amount of memory that you can have your meetings take up. So if you record 25 meetings and you have a free account, you might go over the amount that you're allowed to have, and it will start deleting your meetings. So that's something that you need to pay attention to if you are wanting to record the meetings that you have. So this is what your Zoom screen looks like on a computer. Here's the join with computer audio option. I also have the option to automatically mute myself upon joining, but that's what it looks like. And then down here at the left corner, you should see either a microphone or a headphone set, depending on if you have headphones plugged into your computer or into your phone or into your tablet, or if you're just using the internal built-in speaker system. Then next you have the video icon. That one controls whether or not your video camera is turned on or not. That's the invite button, so you can, again, invite people while on your meeting really quickly. This one says participants or manage participants, depending on whether or not you're the host. But when you click that button, a panel will open up on the right side of the screen that lists all the participants and whether or not they have their video on or if they have their microphone on. The green square with the arrow going out is share. That's sharing your screen. So if you click that button, you'll be able to share what's happening on your computer screen with everyone that's on the meeting. So everyone will be able to see what's on your screen. So if you've just been emailed a document that everybody really needs to look at, you can share your screen and you can all read it together, or you can do something like what I'm doing right now, which is sharing my screen and presenting a PowerPoint. The next option is chat. So again, if you click that box, depending on whether or not you're in full screen mode or partial screen mode, it'll open up a chat box on the right, or it'll open up a tiny little chat screen somewhere on your computer screen. And you'll be able to send messages directly to another person on your Zoom meeting, or you will be able to send a message to the entire group. And then last is the record button. That's not last, sorry. Then there's end or leave meeting. So if you're done with the Zoom meeting, you can leave it. If you're the host, when you leave the meeting, it ends the meeting. So the host button says end meeting, the participant says leave. If your button says leave, the meeting will continue on after you've hopped off. But if your button says end meeting and you're the host of the meeting will not be able to continue if you hop off of the call. It'll automatically end for everyone on the meeting. And this is a full screen button. So if you want the meeting to take up the entirety of your computer screen, you'd click that. And there's also a couple different layout options for Zoom. Those are also found in the upper right corner next to that full screen button. They look like this: speaker view or gallery view. There's only going to be one button, but when you click on it, it'll switch between speaker view and gallery view. Speaker view highlights whoever is speaking at the moment. So that's really helpful if you have a large meeting and it's hard to follow who is talking. Gallery view is really helpful if you have a smaller meeting. You can individually see every single person's screen at the same size, whereas speaker view has one really large screen of the person that's talking, and then a bunch of smaller screens at the top of the people that are listening to the person speak. So that one, it's just a personal preference. Just switch between them and figure out whichever one you like better. This is what a Zoom screen looks like on a phone. So these are screenshots from my iPhone. The one on the left is standard. I have my video camera covered by my finger in this screenshot, but you would be able to see my face. There's the same mute button and start, stop video, share your screen, look at the participants, and then more, I think allows you to access the chat and a few other things. And then there's also the end meeting button. You can also, on a phone, go into safe driving mode, which I've personally never used before, but I guess is a good idea because you shouldn't Zoom and drive whenever possible unless you're just listening. So that's mostly what the safe driving mode is for, is if you're just going to listen and you don't really need to speak that frequently. You can swipe left and go into safe driving mode from the app. And then if you need to speak for any reason, you would just press the button that says tap to speak and hold it down while you're speaking and making your comment. And then you just put your phone back down and it would automatically mute you again. So this button doesn't control whether or not you're muted in safe driving mode. This controls whether or not you're going to be able to hear other people's audio or not. So if you need to stop listening to the meeting for a moment, you can hit that and it will turn the audio off on your phone so you won't have to hear everyone else speaking. And then again, there's the leave or end meeting option that changes depending on whether or not you're the host. So controlling your video and audio, like I said, is really important, and that's controlled in the bottom left of your screen by these two buttons. So there's a mute and video start stop button. If there's a red line through it, that means that either your video is off or you're muted. If there's a red line through the microphone, you're muted. If there's no red line, everyone will be able to hear what you're saying and what's going on in your background. For start video, stop video, basically the same thing. If there's a red line going through it, your video is off. If there is no red line, your video is on. This is sharing your screen. So again, it's that green button at the bottom middle with an arrow pointing out. This is what it will look like when you click share. It'll automatically open up basic and it will try to share your entire desktop with all of the viewers. So you have a few options whether or not you want to share your entire desktop or you want to share just one part of your desktop. So if I wanted to give a PowerPoint presentation, I would have clicked the Microsoft PowerPoint presentation one rather than the entire desktop, because there's no reason for you guys to see the ribbon at the bottom of my computer or the time at the top right. It's more of a personal preference thing, but sharing your desktop is pretty simple. So whichever one is highlighted in blue is the one that's going to share, and then you'll just click the share button in the bottom right, and you'll know that your screen is being shared when you have these two boxes pop up. So this green box says that the screen is being shared and I can stop sharing. I can also pause the sharing if I want. The controls are at the top middle when you share your screen rather than the bottom middle. And there's also this window on the right side, and you'll be able to see any other participant on the meeting if they are talking or something, or if they have a question and it wants to highlight their screen, their face will pop up here. So there's three different options. The smallest one is the minimize option. That one will just say the person's name that they logged in as rather than show their face. The second one, the middle one, will show their face and their name of just whoever's speaking. And then the larger one will create a large ribbon that tries to let you see everybody's face, and you will be able to scroll through there depending on how many people are on the call. So inviting people while in the meeting, you can click participants, and that will open up a participant window on the right side of your screen. And you'll just click that invite button at the bottom left of the participants window. It will pull up this screen, which will let you either use your email account to log in, or what I prefer to do is just copy the invitation. That will automatically copy it to my clipboard, and I can open up email through my regular email app because I just always have that open in the background, and send an email to whoever I want to. Or if you need to be really fast and you want to send it to somebody's cell phone or something, you could copy the URL and just text it to them, whatever is easiest. You can also just do the standard email. Just click your Gmail or your default email. And then this is what that invitation is going to look like. Join the Zoom meeting. It's going to have the big link at the top that will let you just really quickly hop onto the app, or it'll give you the meeting ID and password if you want to manually log in. And then we have the one-tap mobile options. So in Arkansas, we generally are with the Chicago option here. And I guess if you're calling somebody out of state, it might be different. But in Arkansas, we're with Chicago. So you can just tap the phone number and it will automatically type in the meeting ID and the password and allow you to hop on with a phone call really quickly. So then we have the chat box and sharing files. So at the bottom, there's also this chat feature, and I can send a message to everyone, or I can send it to an individual person. But that'll also open up a screen on the right, just like participants. And be really careful on who you're sending your messages to. If you're trying to send a private message, make sure that you are sending it to one individual and not to everyone. So one of the cool things about the chat feature is that it shows every single message that you've recently sent, but it will say to everyone, or to Bill Kopsky, or to Cassie Day, or to whoever it is if you sent an individual message. And you just need to be really careful when you're trying to respond, because it might automatically try to put your email response to everyone rather than to the one individual. This is also where you can share files. This is another spot where you can share files. You can also share it through the screen share. But if you're going to share a file through Zoom, you do need to remember that you will not be able to access that file to download it after the Zoom call ends. So that file share is generally just for a really quick thing that you need to do. If it's an important file that you're trying to share, you should probably just email it to someone so that they still have a record of it. And if they lose it somewhere in their computer, they can go back and re-download it. If you share a file in a Zoom meeting, you will not be able to reopen that file unless you download it while in the meeting. So recording Zoom meetings and webinars. It's the record button at the bottom of the screen, and you'll know that it's recording when these two things pop up. Pause/stop recording will take the place of the old recording button. And then at the top left, there will be a sign that says recording, ... and then you can pause recording or stop recording. So if you only want to record part of a meeting, you can decide what that is, and you can always edit the recording later to cut it down if you need. So for instance, this webinar started recording as soon as I opened this. I opened it at 9:49, I believe. So we have 11 or 12 minutes of just silence with one screen. So I'll be editing that before we upload it to the CFC website. But anytime you need to pause or stop recording, you can make that happen with those same buttons. So scheduling a Zoom meeting is another really important part of Zoom. You can schedule these really far in advance. I've never tried to schedule a meeting farther than a year in advance, but I guess you probably could. You can also make meetings recurring, which is really great. So if you're going to have a 30-minute short meeting every single Monday, so that for the entire staff, so everybody knows what's going on, you can just set up one meeting, click recurring, and it'll happen every Monday at 10:30 or whenever you wanted it to happen. And when you schedule a meeting, you as the host can also dictate what participants are able to do. So you have the ability to give them video privileges or give them audio privileges, depending on what kind of meeting you're having. That's going to vary, just personal preference, really. I just always click share audio and share video because you can turn those features off while on the meeting if you need to. So if you want to schedule a meeting, you would open the Zoom app and you would click the schedule button. And then this screen will pop up. You can change the topic or title of the meeting to whatever you want, select the date and time, and what time the meeting is going to end. If you select a time that the meeting is going to end, but you accidentally go over, it's not going to automatically end your meeting. I don't really know why there's an end time other than for just calendar purposes. For the meeting ID, it's going to automatically try to generate a meeting ID rather than using a personal meeting ID. That's a tiny bit of a safety feature. So that means anytime that I send out an email invitation or set up a Zoom meeting, it's going to have a different ID associated with my account every single time. So if there's a person that's like constantly hopping onto calls that you don't want on your calls, it's probably because they know your personal meeting ID at that point, and they know that if you're going to have a call, it's going to be associated with that number. So if you generate one automatically, people are never really going to know. For the password, you should generally require a meeting password. It doesn't make it more difficult to log on or anything. All of that information is still going to be sent in the same standard email that not requiring a meeting password would be. It just makes it, like I said earlier, a little bit more difficult for someone to join your Zoom call that you don't want on your Zoom call. So if you do really like having a personal meeting ID, you should always require a password if you don't want to do the generate meeting ID automatically. So then next we have video. That's a pretty important one. It's automatically going to start in off for both the host and the participants. Even if you do start the meeting in video off mode, people can turn their video on later in the meeting if they'd like. It's just not going to automatically open video when they hop on the call. I generally like to turn those features on because frequently participants have issues getting their video camera to work. And it's just easier if you just start it on and then people can learn to turn it off rather than start it off and people learn to turn it on. It's just a little bit easier that way. And then if you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see advanced options, and you should open advanced options. And then there's this part that says enable join before host. That one will generally be automatically checked. But whenever you're scheduling a meeting, it's pretty important to enable people to join before host. So people had even hopped onto this meeting before I had started it, but because I had enabled join before host, they were able to see the welcome screen that I had set up. But basically, if a host is late to a meeting for any reason, this will allow all the participants to still hop onto the Zoom call even without the host there. But if a host is late for some reason and you don't have enabled join before host, people might think that the meeting has been canceled and they'll just turn off the meeting and go about their business as if the meeting had been canceled, when really the host is just running behind for a minute. I can't see where enable join before host would ever be not helpful, or I can't think of a reason why it shouldn't be on. So I just always click enable join before host. And then you'd click schedule your meeting, and then it's scheduled. You'll get an email invitation that you can add to your calendar. So if you're going to host a Zoom meeting, you have a lot of privileges as the host. You can mute everybody, which is really great because frequently there's a lot of background noise that the person hearing that background noise doesn't know is being picked up by their microphone. So if they're not speaking at the moment, you can mute them and eliminate a lot of the background noise that's happening. You can revoke video privileges. There have been times where I've heard reports of, I've not seen, but people have forgotten that they're on video because somebody's sharing their screen or something, so they don't realize that their camera is still on, and they'll take their phone or their computer just around the house. And I heard of one person that just took it to the bathroom, forgetting that people were looking at them. So as a host, you can save people from embarrassment by revoking their video privileges. You can also highlight somebody's video. That's really similar to I guess it's kind of similar to sharing a screen, but highlighting somebody's video puts them automatically in speaker view. And if they stop talking for a moment, their face will still remain the big one that everybody's focused on. So this is also a great way if somebody has to give a little short presentation about something, you can highlight somebody's video and they can talk it through for a few minutes and then answer people's questions about whatever they've been talking about. The host also has the capability of ending the meeting. So like I said earlier, the host of any Zoom meeting is the one who ends the meeting for everyone. Participants can leave the meeting and it will continue, but if the host leaves the meeting, it will end the meeting for everyone. You can change who's host or make a co-host. So if you ever do need to hop off of a meeting early and you are the host of that meeting, if you change the host to another person and then you leave the meeting, it won't end because the host is now someone else and you're just a participant. The host can also rename people. If somebody hops on with a cell phone number and they're asking a lot of questions and you don't have that cell phone number memorized and you don't know who it is, you can ask them to identify themselves and you can rename them so that their name is popping up rather than a phone number. You can also remove people. So if somebody has hopped onto your Zoom meeting that you do not want there, you can remove them and it will not let them rejoin that meeting. There's no way they can possibly hop back on that call, even if you wanted them to. If you send the invitation to them again, they're still removed and they cannot hop on. You have to start a whole new call if you want that person back on the meeting. So it's great because once somebody's kicked out, they're kicked out, but if you accidentally remove someone, that's maybe not the best. So this is what it looks like on the participant screen if you are the host of a meeting. So when you scroll over someone's name, like I'd scrolled over Jessla's name there, I went to more and clicked that down arrow, and then these are the options that came up. So there's chat. That's how I could individually chat her. It'll open up a chat box and will create a message automatically to just start typing to Jessla. I could stop the video if for some reason she couldn't stop her video or she needed to step away for a moment. I could stop her video as the host, or I could do the opposite and spotlight her video and make sure that every single person sees Jessla and was focused on her. I could also make her the host, so make host. That gives her the capabilities of doing the controlling of the audio, controlling the video. I could also rename her, so I could add Jessla Maples rather than just Maples, or I could remove her from the call. So this is what it looks like if you don't have the participant window open. When you scroll over somebody's video as the host, it will highlight in gold and you'll be able to click that little 3 buttons that is basically a drop-down menu of almost all the exact same things. Audio and video control, chat, pinning the video is the same as highlighting video, making host, rename, remove, and then waiting rooms we'll talk about in just a second. So Zoom safety. One of the biggest things that I've heard from a lot of our members of CFC is questions about Zoom safety and reports of people being hacked constantly with Zoom. Those reports are, I don't want to say incorrect, but a lot of people that say their meetings have been hacked just posted their Zoom link publicly, allowing people that maybe are against their group's agenda to hop on the call and say crude words or do like mean things or just disrupt the meeting somehow. So the way to avoid that is to not publicly post a Zoom link. Only send your Zoom meeting or webinar link to people that you trust. You can require passwords. Like I said, that's just a little bit of an additional safety net. And you can create waiting rooms. We'll talk about that one in just a second. But basically, when somebody tries to hop onto a Zoom call, the host automatically gets to vet whether or not they want the person on the meeting. And you can also require registration. So at the CFC, we've been doing registration on our own website, but if you don't have a website that's capable of doing something like that, Zoom can create a registration page for you. So you would just send the link to that page and people would type in their first and last name, their email, and whatever other question you had for them, like can we contact you by your cell phone number, something like that. You can require registration, which will again allow you to kind of vet who's going to be able to hop onto the call or not. And there's also this security button that Zoom added recently. This will only pop up if you're hosting the meeting, but basically You can determine if you want all participants rather than just highlighting one at a time. You can do this to all. You can remove the chat function. If there's a check mark by it, it means that it's something that people can do at the moment. But you can remove the chat function if there's been a lot of angry things said in the chat or something like that. You can turn chat feature off. You can refuse to allow people to rename themselves. So it's potentially, it's a possibility that someone could name themselves a lewd word. And if you don't want people to rename themselves, you can turn that feature off and it'll automatically go back to whatever name they came in with. You can revoke people's ability to share their screen. So I've also heard reports of people disrupting Zoom calls by sharing their screen and sharing bad things on their computer that all the other participants and hosts don't really want to see. And then you can enable a waiting room, which, like I said, is just allows the host of the meeting to vet who can come into the meeting. And you can also lock the meeting. So that one I've heard mostly only used by academics, I guess, professors that are really strict about who is on their class call. So if their class starts at 10 a.m., they can lock their meeting at 10:01 and no one can join late. So it's a way for them to, you know, take roll, I guess, to lock a meeting. I've never used the lock meeting feature, but it could exist potentially. I mean, it does exist, but you could use it potentially. So this is what a waiting room looks like. In the participant window, if you're the host, it will say that one person is trying to join the call. Would you like to accept them or not? And then you would click admit if you thought that that was a person you want on your Zoom call. And then this is the message on the right side of the screen that they would receive that says, please wait, your meeting host will let you in soon. So that's just the waiting screen that people get as hosts are deciding whether or not they want someone to join their Zoom meeting. So Zoom tips and tricks. Lighting. Lighting is one of the things that I've seen people struggle with the most. Avoid backlighting at all, and if possible, please avoid backlighting. The picture on the left is me sitting in front of a window, so there's a lot of light coming in through that window, and there's not much light in the living room that I'm sitting in, and you can't see my face at all. You can see the top of my little head, that's about it. So the picture on the right is a lot better lighting. So I think in that I don't even have any lamps or anything on, but I'm sitting in front of a bright window. Anytime your light source is you can see the light source from your video camera, it's not gonna end well for your face. You're not gonna be able to see your face very well. If it's a dark day or if you don't have the capability of sitting right in front of a window, you can also add a lamp on your desk and just turn that on right in front of you. It also helps with lighting a lot. The next one is a lot less important in my opinion, but camera angle can also kind of matter. So what I've been doing for all of my Zoom meetings, because my desk is really low, I just stack my computer on a large stack of books, and that allows me to put the camera at eye level. So generally the closest you can get to eye level, the more natural it looks. It's also a lot better for your posture to have the camera at eye level, so you won't be craning your neck looking down constantly. And also Zoom generally just recommends propping up your phone rather than holding onto it for a whole hour or whatever. And if you are having issues with the video camera on your computer and you are having a little bit of difficulty controlling whether the camera is on or not, or you need to step away for just a second and you don't want to turn your video completely off, you can also cover your camera on your computer with any kind of not clear tape. So, I mean, don't use Scotch tape, but you can put a sticky note on there or basically anything that would cover up the camera. So the camera is going to be at the top middle of your laptop when it's open. Some cameras have a built-in cover, like this one on the left. That little black circle can actually slide to the right and cover up the camera. I have one of those on my computer that I just was given at some point, and it's like a little sticky thing that just slides right over my camera just like that. It's really convenient, but if you don't want to buy one or nobody just randomly gave you one, you can also use the sticky note and it works just as fine covering up the camera. So backgrounds for Zoom is a really fun aspect of Zoom. It's really great for any kind of casual meeting. However, sometimes they're a little difficult to get to function properly. And if they're too wild, they can be a little distracting if it's a more formal meeting where you really need to be getting a lot of stuff done. But if you want to use a background, doing it on your phone is really easy, but the computer is a little more difficult. So you would just go to the video section in the bottom left of your Zoom screen. You would click that arrow to the right of the video icon, and you would click that choose virtual background button. That will automatically pull up the virtual background settings that we see on the right of the computer right now. You're gonna lie and say I have a green screen. I mean, I guess you might have a green screen. I don't know anyone that has a green screen at their house, but if you lie and say I have a green screen, you can set any of their automatic backgrounds, or you can click this plus sign right here and add your own virtual background, basically any image that you download. And you can even have a moving background as well, but again, that's even more distracting. So this feature doesn't work for me. This is what it looks like when I try to use a virtual background. My scan matches the walls of my room, and it decides that my face is actually the background. So it just projects it on my face. So that's an example of it not working. It works a lot better if you're trying to use a cell phone. And then some people get it to function fine. And it's really cool, and it's a nice feature, but it can be pretty distracting if maybe if you don't know the group of people that you're talking to really well, or if you have a lot to get accomplished and any distraction is just to be avoided, as there are a lot more distractions right now that we're all working from home. So backgrounds are cool. They're a great icebreaker, a great way to just like take a break in a meeting. If you want to say like, take a 5-minute break, everybody choose a fun background and come back. That could be something you could do that would keep people entertained. And then Zoom etiquette. The mute button is your best friend. Anytime you are not speaking, literally anytime you are not actively speaking, hit mute. There is so much noise that our microphones pick up in the background, especially if we're using just a built-in microphone on a computer, a tablet, or a phone rather than headphones. Using that built-in microphone, it tries to pick up any noise it could possibly hear. So please mute whenever you are not actively talking. Headphones are really great. If you have access to them, please use them. It helps reduce background noise a lot, and it lets you not blast the speaker on your phone constantly. Don't forget that your camera is on. So even right now, in screen sharing mode in meetings, anyone that is sharing their video will still pop up on the right side of the screen. So even though you don't see your face anymore, your video is still being seen by someone. So don't forget that your camera is on. And please also look at the camera whenever possible. Also look at the screen, but don't stare at a completely different computer than the one that's actually looking at you. So if you like share a desktop and it has 2 screens on it, look at the correct screen, please. The one that has your camera on it. Pay attention to who's receiving your chat messages. So that one's pretty straightforward. Like I mentioned earlier, if you're going to reply to somebody, make sure it's replying to an individual and not to the entire group. Don't join on more than one device. Some people I've heard have been joining on their laptop and also using the dial-in option. All that does is create a lot of headache for whoever is attempting to use both of these devices at once. One device is all you need. You really don't need to try to call in on your phone and use your computer. And then Zoom meetings are really similar to standard meetings. Please take breaks during really long meetings. If you're going to have a meeting that's like 3 hours, please take the exact same breaks, or maybe even more frequent breaks than what you would do if you were still at the office or still doing just a standard organizing meeting. Pay attention. I that one seems pretty weird, I guess, but it's kind of important. Pay attention. Your video is on. Your host is going to be able to see whether or not you are actually looking at the screen or if you're typing on your phone in front of you. When you turn the video off as well, it's really easy to get distracted and to start zoning out. So I really recommend turning on video for both the host and participants as a mutual accountability thing. It keeps you on track and it keeps the host on track. But paying attention is a lot harder, I think, on Zoom meetings than it is on in-person meetings. And because of this, Zoom meetings, you should interact as much as possible, ask questions, answer the questions, use the chat feature, anything that you can do to increase interaction of your participants and the host is really, really important. So then Zoom questions. I mean, we've been talking about Zoom now for almost a full hour, and I'm sure you guys have a little more questions about it. If we can't cover it today, Zoom, like I said earlier, has a really great helpline. If it's Zoom support, so if you just type Zoom support into your browser, this link will probably automatically be the first one to pop up. You'll go to their help page, and like I said, they have a little chat box at the bottom right that automatically says, hey, how can we help you? And if you have a question that you can't find immediately on like the first page of their help website, if you type it in, they should be able to direct you to a page that can answer it. And they have almost every question you could possibly think of to have about Zoom answered. Also, the best way to learn how to use Zoom is just to play around on Zoom. You can call a friend, press all the buttons you want. You can't break it. It's a piece of software. You literally cannot destroy it. There's nothing that you can do that will really ruin Zoom. So don't be afraid to just call a family member, call a friend, and just chat for a while and press with all the buttons and see what you can do. You can also ask me now in the Q&A box, or you can email me later, call me, whatever you're feeling. My email is margaret@arpanel.org, and I'll make sure that I put that in the chat box at the end, or I'll put it in the Q&A or something. But again, that's margaret@arpanel.org. So feel free to ask me your Zoom questions. I might not know the answer off the top of my head, but I'll be really excited to try to help you figure it out. Okay, and with that, I'm going to open up the Q&A box and see what's going on, I guess. Let's see. Oh, we don't have any open questions right now. That's awesome. Okay, well, if you guys have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box. We'll wait for just a little bit to see if any pop up. Okay, so someone just asked, how do you invite someone to a Zoom meeting? I'm gonna pull that PowerPoint back up. So earlier, we talked about scheduling a Zoom meeting. When you schedule that meeting, it'll automatically create a calendar invitation, and you can send that calendar invitation to other people. And this is what the invitation looks like if you just copy the invitation. So when you schedule, if you copy invitation, you can open up your email and send it to whomever you would like, and they'll get the link and the one-tap mobile login, or they can get the meeting ID and the password. All of it will pop up in that invitation, and you can send it to people, and they can automatically put it on their calendar, or they can leave it in their email, whatever they're feeling. Oh, there's a lot happening in the chat. I see that now. So someone asked, what's URL? I honestly don't know what URL stands for, but the URL is just the link that when you click it will automatically open up a specific page. So when you click on a URL, which is this long string of letters over here, https://zoom.us, and then all of the meeting details. When you click on that URL, it will automatically, it acts like a link in an email or something, and it'll open up the page to Zoom, and Zoom will say, would you like to open this in the Zoom app? And you'll click yes, and it'll open the Zoom app. So that's what the URL is. Yes, laptops do have controls like chat or mute or leave in the exact same location as the computer. To my knowledge, the Apple computer and non-Apple products also have the exact same Zoom screen. So everything that you've been seeing should work. So someone asked if they could join Zoom Pro for a single month or if it has to be an annual thing and then they could cancel. What happened when we bought our first Zoom license was that we had to purchase annual licenses. When you purchase annually, though, it does drop the cost down from $15 a month to I think like $12 a month or something. So you do end up saving money, but that means that there should also be a contract where you can do month by month. And I think that's what a lot of people are utilizing right now because it's so uncertain how long we're going to have to be able to use Zoom meetings. So you can purchase most things for a monthly rate, but it would be a lot higher than purchasing it for an annual rate. If you do purchase for an annual rate, you can't just cancel and because you have to pay in full upfront for one full year or for however many years you've bought. Oh, uniform resource locator. That's what URL stands for. Thanks, Ron. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the Q&A now. So someone asked about the registration including a password, but when they joined the webinar, it wasn't required. That's because when you clicked the link, the password was automatically put into that link. So that's one of the best parts about the URL access feature is that as soon as you click it, you can automatically join. You don't have to look at the rest of the invitation. You don't have to know the meeting number or the password associated with the meeting because that URL already has it automatically typed in. So it should open your meeting as soon as you click that link, whether or not a password is required. How do you, someone asked, how do you label meetings so you can keep all of your meetings straight? Can you add a note? I'm going to flip back to share screen for just a moment. When you're scheduling a meeting, I think that's farther down this way. Yes. When you're scheduling a meeting, there's going to be a topic section at the top, and you can type in whatever the title of that meeting is. So at this point in time, I was logged into Chimera's Zoom account. So generally when I schedule one, it says Margaret's Zoom meeting, but I would change that to be like Education Caucus monthly meeting or something. But you can change that title. And over here in on your Zoom app, on the right side of the screen, it will say the date and it will say all the meetings that you have scheduled for that day. You could also click this meetings button right here with the little clock and see all the meetings that you have scheduled out. But the most important thing to keep those straight is just making sure that the titles are different and specific for what things you're going to be talking about. Someone asked, is the host the only person who can change who the host is? Can the co-host do this as well? So the co-host can also add who the host is. Basically, the co-host is the exact same as the host. They just can't both have the title host, but the co-host has all the exact same powers as the host. So the only person that won't be able to change who the hosts are participants. Participants can't do that, but the host and the co-host can. After saving a meeting, where would one go to find that saved copy? That will vary a little bit depending on how you recorded the meeting. So there's two types of ways that you can record a meeting. You can record to the cloud, or you can record to your computer. So if it records to your computer, it will automatically just save into your computer files. I think maybe at the end of the save, it'll ask you to name the file, or it might generate an automatic name. But that one would be on your computer. If you're recording to the cloud, you'll have to log into your Zoom account online rather than in your app. So when you log in online, it will have a section called meetings, or called recorded meetings, or called recordings, something along those lines. And you'll open up that page and it will have all of the meetings that you've recorded, and you can download any meeting that you want from there, and it will download to your computer. How do you delete rescheduled meetings? Okay, so what I think you're asking is, if you change the time of a meeting, will it automatically delete that first one? It will if you have Zoom connected to your calendar. So if I have a meeting scheduled for today at 1 p.m. and I decide that I need to scoot it back to 3 p.m., as long as I update it on my calendar and update it on Zoom, it should send it to everyone else that might be invited to that meeting, and it'll say that there was an update and that it's been rescheduled. And your Zoom meeting won't change the link or anything when you reschedule it. It shouldn't do anything weird, but you don't have to delete a rescheduled meeting. So if I change the time from 1 to 3, it would just automatically update that the time is now 3 p.m. It won't need to change anything. When should you send an invitation, and how do you send reminders? Is there a way to keep track? So that's going to vary a lot depending on how big the meeting is, how many participants you're going to have, what your organization's style is. What we try to do at CFC and at the panel is we have people register on our website, and then our website sends them automatic reminders. So it'll, depending on how far we've scheduled it out, it would send like a week in advance, and then the day before, and maybe the morning of, depending on how frequently you want to touch base with people. People say the rule of 3, but whatever your general frequency is on that. How do you send reminders? So when you register on Zoom, I think Zoom will also automatically try to send reminders. I know it will for the webinar. It'll send reminders automatically to anyone who's registered, and you can set when those reminders would be. So if you want to set the day before, an hour before, you can send that. And is there a way to keep track? Because I've never used the registration feature, I honestly do not know, but I will look into it. Yeah, I assume that Zoom will automatically send you an email as well when it sends the entire registration, a reminder email. And then the next question was, what does it mean if your video is really jumpy? So that probably just means that your Wi-Fi connection isn't really strong, or whoever is on video right now. So if you were looking at a video of me and I was jumping around, it could either be on my end or it could be on your end. So it could be that my Wi-Fi connection just isn't strong, and therefore my video is kind of jumping around and cutting in and out. or it could be that yours isn't very strong. So that would, if you have multiple people on the call and just one person's video is jumpy, it's probably their connection. If everybody's video is really jumpy, it's probably your connection. And at that point, it's just kind of a Wi-Fi thing. You could try turning your Wi-Fi on and off, but it'll log you out of the Zoom meeting and you'll have to jump back in when your computer automatically reconnects to the Wi-Fi. Then you asked, can you demonstrate how to change the time on a meeting after the invitation has been sent? Okay, maybe. So give me just 1 second. So I can't ask you guys what part of my screen you're seeing right now. So you might not be seeing any screen. Okay. So let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and share it in a different way. So now I'm sharing my desktop, so you guys should be able to see my entire desktop. Pull that Q&A box out of the way. But if I wanted to schedule a meeting, and let's say I wanted to schedule it for, 11:30. This is a test Zoom meeting. I can schedule it. It will automatically ask for access to my calendar. I'll say yes, allow access. And then it will pull up an automatic invitation on my calendar. And at this point, this is where I could add guests. So if I wanted to add Cassie and Megan to this, it will send them an email about this. So then I'm gonna click save. And I just sent the email invitation to Cassie and Megan. And here it is right here on my calendar. So you can see that it's scheduled for 11:30. But let's say I want to change that time. So I would go to meetings. I have my test Zoom meeting. Just gonna minimize that. I have my test Zoom meeting right here. And if I wanted to click edit, I could change that time. So let's say 2 p.m. I'd click save. And then it would automatically update on my calendar that it's now at 2 p.m. I'd click save again. And this meeting, let's see, it still says, so at that point, I think you would just have to send an email to all of your guests that you have changed the time of the meeting. So the link, the link is still the same. So anyone with the link could still hop on, but you would just have to let them know that that call isn't going to be at 11:30 anymore. It's going to be at 2 p.m. So I guess Zoom will not automatically send it to all of your guests, but your calendar will. So if I edited that and clicked add guests and I wanted to send it again to Megan and Cassie, I'd click save and then it would send them a notification. So it just depends if you wanted to automatically do it or not. See, okay, there's no open questions in the Q&A, and what's happening in the chat? Okay, I'm gonna give it just a little bit more time to see if there's any questions left. One person has raised their hand. So for webinars and also for Zoom meetings, there's a feature called raising your hand. And that's just basically if you want attention from the host and you would like to be able to speak or something. If you raise your hand, it gives the host a notification that you would like to speak or that you have a question. And then the host can then lower your hand after they've interacted with you. So nothing else is popping up in the chat or in the Q&A. So if you guys have any more questions, once again, my email is margaret@arpanel.org, and I'd be happy to help you out. A recording of this is going to be available on our website, on the CFC Citizens First website. And I am sending my email into the chat, so everyone should be able to copy it down. And with that, I just want to thank you guys so much for hopping on this Zoom call. On behalf of the CFC and the Arkansas Public Policy Panel, we really appreciate you learning more about Zoom with us, and we hope you have a great rest of your weekend. Stay safe out there and enjoy this beautiful weather. Thanks, everybody.